Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined a doctor as she jumps in the middle of a time storm and arrive at episode 507. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
This has been a long week.
Yes, it has.
What'd you do
I don't
this
know about
week?
you guys, but this has been a long week.
What'd you do this week that made it so long?
This has been a lot of work. Yeah. What he said. Work, and more work.
Which is a
What
shame.
did you do?
It felt like a long weekend with Veterans Day last week.
That's just for you. The rest of us probably had to work.
Yeah, probably.
I watched Dune.
What did you think?
It's a good movie. It's a bit too sprawling. It's beautifully shot. It's terrifically acted. It's got some really great scenes and really some great action, but it is too sprawling. There's too much. Oh wow, look at this. Oh wow, look at this. Oh wow, look at this. And so there's times throughout it that I found myself getting bored and getting on my phone. But then it would come back to something, happening or something interesting happening, and then I would go, "Oh, okay, I'm back into it." So overall, I think it has problems with its scope. Is probably, I think he could have nailed it down a little bit. He could have tightened it up and made it a little more concise, and still kept to the source material. I think it's probably the best adapted version that I've seen. It certainly stays pretty true to the source. But then again, Dune was one of those books that I read and I enjoyed it and was glad that I read it, but it also has got a lot of long and boring parts to it. So I guess this kind of cut from the same cloth there. But no, it's good. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the second one. Anyway, that's what I did. What did you guys do this week?
I watched Shang-Chi.
Ooh, you finally got it.
Yeah.
Disney
Finally
Plus
got
Day.
to see it. Yes, thank you, Disney Plus Day. Of course, we had to watch Ciao Alberto first.
I
loved that one. It was so cute.
I still haven't seen the film.
You haven't seen Luca?
Luca. I still haven't seen Luca.
You should watch Luca.
I should. It's the problem with those kind of films is they're ones that my whole family want to see, so I'm kind of limited to sitting down and watching them with them, and so I end up having to spend my time doing other things, and so unfortunately we never get around to scheduling all these thousands of films that I want to see. So eventually I'll just go on without them.
Yeah, just pretend you haven't seen it.
Right.
But I liked Shang-Chi a lot. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was, while it had the trappings of a Marvel film, the Asian aspect of things, making it feel kind of like a kung fu film, and like for lack of better comparison, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon gave it enough of a twist that it didn't feel overly familiar. I liked it. I thought it's one I want to definitely rewatch. Not in 3 settings and with little kids being loud and how
Right.
little kids are. Because I think there's some stuff I may have missed as far as the overall plot goes, but I liked it a lot.
Good. Sean, did you do anything?
I got to sneak out. Well, I did a couple things. Mel and I did go back and catch the Eternals, and I definitely liked it better on the second go-around. Partially because I think the third act picks it up and kind of ties things in a little bit better for me than where we were at when we bailed on it. And partially because having seen the first half and going back through the first half kind of with the foreknowledge of things to come, I was very closely paying attention to certain bits and pieces going, okay, that's where that comes from. And I was just able to piece it together a little bit better.
Yeah,
but I did enjoy it. I still think it's kind of a middle of the road Marvel movie, but no, I enjoyed it much better the second time.
Yeah, I went again, and of course I really liked it the first time too, but I went back and I thought, this is one of those second viewing appreciate a film a little bit even more because I'm with you. The connectivity is a little better, especially on second viewing, because you kind of go, okay, I know why this works together now, whereas before it seems a little random. But once you're familiar with the story, everything seems to kind of work the second time. So a film shouldn't rely on that. I will be the first to admit. But I still think it was an enjoyable film, and yeah, I picked up on a lot more the second time even. Again, it
shouldn't have to rely on it, but it can deepen the appreciation of it.
Yeah, sure.
And then I got to sneak out and see The French Dispatch, the new Wes Anderson film, which was fun. I don't think I liked it. I didn't like it as well as I enjoyed Grand Budapest Hotel, but it's definitely up there in the quality level if you're a Wes Anderson fan. And Glenn, the paper is in your hometown.
No, I was reading about it after we talked about it last week. It's Liberty, Kansas, not Liberal.
Oh, is it Liberty? I had it wrong.
Liberty, Kansas. Yeah. I got intrigued, and when you'd said that last week, and I was like, "Oh, I'll go check this out." And when I got to digging around, it was like they used Liberty, Kansas. I'm not even sure there really is a Liberty, Kansas.
I don't think there is.
I think it was made up.
Well, it's a made up paper, so
there is a Liberty, Kansas in Montgomery County.
Montgomery County.
Oh, welcome to all of our listeners from Liberty, Kansas. The real one.
A population of 123.
Oh, wow.
As of the 2010 census.
Well, they may have grown when the 2020 numbers come in.
Well, they've got a whole paper now. So,
is there anything else?
Yeah, Mel and I went and saw the Monkees in concert.
Oh yeah, how was that?
Oh, nice.
It was good. It was my first time. This particular iteration, of course, we've lost 2 of the 4 members, so it was just Mickey and Mike, and it was my first time ever seeing Mike Nesmith on stage, because Nez does not like to tour. And, when your mom invented liquid paper, I guess you don't have to. When you were one of the co-inventors of MTV, I guess you don't have to. But, no, it was good. Mickey still sounds incredible. He still sounds exactly like he does. Mike sounds good, but he appeared very frail. And I had to kind of keep reminding myself, well, he is 70-something. So,
yeah.
But yeah, they did some deep cuts and a lot of tracks that you don't normally hear at a Monkees concert, simply because Nesmith was there. So that was kind of cool. Their farewell tour. And I guess this was they did Kansas City, and then Salina was the penultimate stop on the tour. And then they're doing one more in LA, and it's all, well, and then I think there's a cruise or something with the Beach Boys, but that's it. That's the end of the touring Monkees. So I feel very fortunate to have gotten to go.
Yeah. Well, anything else?
Well, if you've been following along, you should know by now that we are giving away a copy of the game Flux, which is a wonderful card game, which you probably saw us play on one of the episodes of Traveling the Vortex. And it was we have an extra copy of the game that was gifted to us by our friends over at Looney Labs, who are the creators and developers of it. And all you have to do to become entered to win this copy of this game is to get onto our email, and Glenn will tell you what that is because I can't remember anything, and send us the word planet, PLANET, planet. And that'll get you entered to win. And if you've entered before, well, you can enter again. And each word is good for an entry to win. And we'll draw a name out of the hat and send it off at the end of the season.
Yeah, so be sure to send those entries to feedback@travelingthevortex.com so that Keith can round those up and tally the votes. We'd like to take a moment to mention that we are now part of the Direction Point Podcast Network. It's a network specifically for Doctor Who podcasts like ours. Other podcasts on the network include the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast, the Doctor Who Target Book Club Podcast, Police Box in a Junkyard Podcast, and Timestreams. You can find us all at directionpoint.org. Be sure to check it out. All right.
Dun, dun.
Well, let's move on to our review.
Time is beginning to run wild. On a planet that shouldn't exist, in the aftermath of apocalypse, the Dr. Dan and Yaz and Vinder face a battle to survive.
On my command, beginning to run wild.
This one, I think, is a little bit more of a difficult one to review because it is very much not a standalone. It is kind of the linchpin, it feels like, of what has led up to this moment and what's going to come out of this moment. So overall, I thought the episode was good, but I don't know that I was overly blown away just because there was so much plot. It's kind of like the Eternals. I think I need to see it again.
Well, and there was a lot of plot and not a lot of plot at the same time. Like, we get a little bit of backstory on Dan, but not a lot. We get a lot of backstory on Vinder, and we get kind of the Swarm backstory. And Yaz, unfortunately, is left to eat chips in a police car.
And play video games with her sister. Yeah. I mean, obviously, Yaz's stuff was setting up the Angel, which sets up next week's episode. So she is there to further the overarchings of the kind of through lines of the season, but not the subplots of the season, I guess, more accurately. So sometimes it felt like there was a lot of plot and things were moving forward, and other times it felt like it was kind of treading water a little bit. I don't know if I would say treading water, but I think that it certainly is spinning all the plates at once and, trying to keep a lot of things from crashing down too early. Of course, we're halfway through the series now. But I think there's a lot of spinning plates going in this one. I was very grateful that at least we got to see how a cliffhanger was resolved. But
it was the whole episode. The whole episode resolved the cliffhanger.
Well, I don't like how wonky it felt. I'm not even sure how I felt about it. I thought that the concept of it was clever. I like the idea of trapping them in their own time streams in order to work it out with the Mori so that she can get the replacements so that Yaz and Vinder can be freed. So I like the concept of that, and I think on the surface it was good. And I do not want to criticize special effects whatsoever, but I think the dangling there, kicking their legs could have looked a less wireworky had they shot it a little differently and maybe lit them better. I think the lighting was poor on them so that it made the CGI sort of stick out a bit in my mind. But again, I liked the concept. I liked the idea of bouncing into these different timelines and the Doctor trying to make contact and let each of them know what was going on, that she was trying to rescue them, to do something. And Yaz, I really felt like she got the short end again this week. I really hope that she gets some more focus in one of the last or all of the last 3 episodes. I just really don't feel like they're doing anything with her. Dan, I think, is getting some good development. I think we got, even in this one, without having a lot of Dan presence as himself, we got sort of the look at the type of relationship that he's got with the girl that has ended up trapped in Passenger. And I think that I really, really liked the Doctor's storyline, because I think we're to presume that this is happening back in the dark times before her memory loss. And obviously it's the fugitive Doctor, because I really like the fact that they brought Ruth back and we got the images of her when she would look in the mirror and she would see her. I think one of the things that did kind of trouble me a little bit is how old is Cavanista if that really is him working with her in the division. I mean, the Doctors are at least, thousands of years old. How old can this guy be?
If he was back in the dark times?
Right, yeah. So I think
dogs
that's
would have a shorter lifespan.
I also thought it was a bit random. What was the girl's name that we kept cutting to? Was that Belle? Was that her name?
Yeah, Belle.
Okay, so I kept thinking, okay, well, first of all, we've got this little thread of a story going, and I was sort of enjoying it, and then I go, oh, look, and she's talking about now she's in the Dalek sector, and I went, oh, look, Daleks, that's pretty cool, and, they're hovering back there, and I thought that doesn't look too bad, and I said, well, something's wrong, and so I had to back up and look at it again, and it's not their head that's swiveling, it's their whole neck part that's swiveling back and forth, and I thought, how could you get that wrong? That looks so wrong. And that's so weird. That bugged the heck out of me. And so I was a little irked by that. But I like the fact that then she ends up in the Cyberman sector, and she gets the information out of the dying Cyberman, which I think I had to stretch a little bit of belief that he would be, offering up that much information. But I think that was kind of the best way to deliver the information that she needed. And I also, I thought, well, of course, when the universe is compromised, who are going to be the factions that are going to come to the forefront? It's going to be the Daleks, it's going to be the Cybermen, it's going to be the Sontarans. And so it made a lot of sense that they've kind of sectored off different areas, and it sort of made the Sontaran story even a little more bulky, because that clearly the Earth sector or area was where the Sontarans were taking advantage of. So I thought that was kind of clever that there are these different sectors that are being set up as a result of the Flux. So I really kind of liked her story. And then the sort of reveal that Vendor is either a husband or at least a significant other, and she's pregnant with a baby. And then I kind of thought, oh, wait a minute. Are we implying that maybe perhaps one of the revelations we're going to have down the line is these are the parents of the timeless child?
I hadn't thought that.
So I'm wondering if that is, I'm not sure. They didn't make it too obvious, but I'm not sure if maybe this isn't going to end up being the Doctor's parents in a way. Because I can't think of any other reason to have, and Vendor's backstory and quest was really unique and unusual. And I kind of felt like they explained why he ended up where he ended up. I don't think it really, I kind of wanted to know more about what the consequence was for filing this report. I think that I felt like I wanted a little more of that story. I wanted to find out a little bit more what the who this guy was that he's working for. Just a little bit more of that, which maybe that'll be revisited a little bit later down the road. But overall,
we definitely needed a little bit more world building to understand why this dragon guy was so important and why he was in charge of everything.
Yes, exactly. That I think was the piece that was missing. So,
and I just I didn't read that much into the Belle pregnancy. In fact, I couldn't quite tell when she was talking about it, because it's implied that he had been a very long time away from her. Like, it was almost like she was going to have his pregnant. Yeah, it was like I'm gonna have your baby someday sort of thing was how I interpreted it. And I think that idea, I also assumed, was just to give it even more of an emotional heft of you wanting to see these two people brought back together. To give an emotional grounding for Vendor, to give you a reason to care what happens to him. But I like the Belle storyline.
You don't think that little gigapet thing she was carrying along, I kind of felt like was a sort of a quasi baby monitor kind of thing that she could somewhat get emotional responses through it from the baby that she's carrying. Because I got the impression somewhere that she was actually pregnant, not that she wanted to have his kid. And if this is a timeless child thing, maybe the gestation period of their species is, 10, 15 years. Who knows? Not that long, but several years anyway.
Yeah, I think it's something that we won't know until further down the line for sure.
I think you're right.
But I really like the exploration that, because, what we've seen so far, the Flux has been kind of abstract. And yeah, it's destroying things maybe. And this is a nice, firm, this hasn't been undone sort of thing. Because you can almost, the way we've redirected what we've been doing, dealing with the Sontarans last week, and the other storylines of what the Doctor's doing, you kind of forget that, this Flux came through and destroyed half the universe, or however much of the universe. So it's nice to explore the aftermath of that, and seeing her kind of trying to survive and get through everything that's been left behind. I thought that was a really nice way to make the Flux. It made me realize, this actually happened.
Yeah,
which was good, because otherwise I just would have just ignored. They talk about the Flux and it comes across as something you can maybe avoid, whereas it's clear that this now it's happened, it's done. There's no going back from it.
At least at the time frame that her story is set in.
Right.
Which may not be running concurrently with the events of the rest of the run.
Correct.
That's true.
Yeah, I have to agree with Keith when she said, I'm going to have your child. My first thought was, okay, she's pregnant. And like Glenn, I assumed that the Tamagotchi thing was some way of interfacing with the baby. But then I immediately thought, when did he leave? Because it seems like he's been gone, or she's been searching for him a long time. Now, yeah, obviously, aliens, we don't know what the gestation period is, but that part didn't jive for me. It was because all of a sudden, because I was really enjoying her story. And like Glenn, I would have loved more, because I think it's fairly obvious that he got sentenced to this, outpost as a punishment for whatever the fallout of his report was. That he was being banished. But it seemed like he had been gone for a while, that this wasn't a brand new posting. But that kind of suddenly didn't jive for me. If this is in fact meant to be, or going to be, the Doctor's parents, I don't know. Admittedly, I was not the biggest fan of the Timeless Child story arc to begin with. And so while I like the fact that they brought Ruth back, and I like the fact that we kind of date stamped Ruth as part of the Dark Times, that also brought up a bunch of different connotations of things that's like, well, but now this doesn't seem to work, and how does that going to play in with this, and are you retconning everything, or I don't know. I'm still on the fence with that whole thing. I thought it was clever how they did it, but I don't know that I like that they did it. But I, again, have to reserve judgment until we get to the end of the thing to find out whether or not it's actually going to work for me.
I do want to point out that whoever put Bill's entry on TARDIS Wiki says she's pregnant with his child. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, or says she was pregnant with his child.
They do everything in past tense. So.
Yeah. So the TARDIS Wiki, whoever made that entry, thought the same thing. Got that from somewhere too. So. I think Anne being the emotional leverage for Dan in this story gives him some more personal motivation, which I think works really well from that concept. And then we've got this mystery woman that shows up in the Doctor's timeline, basically telling her that the Flex is man-made and that it's destroying the universe because of the Doctor. And that's all we get to learn about it.
Well, and what's interesting is they've also set up this idea of time versus space in battle with each other. And that the Flux is a space issue, not a time issue. So separating those two, in Doctor Who, it's always been one and the same. So the fact that they're separating these two for this story is kind of puts me on my back foot a little bit, and I'm not sure how to take it and how they're going to move forward with it.
I sort of think that that's a red herring. I think that that's to put us on our back foot, make us think that they are distinctly separate. I think that eventually, especially if Belle and Vinder are the timeless child's parents, then clearly they are back in the dark times. But we know for a fact that the Doctor and Dan and Yaz, I've already forgotten her name because they aren't using her enough. Yaz is obviously in our time. So I'm wondering if they go that route, if the Chibnall's going to fold it back together and say, "Oh no, I duped you. This really is happening concurrent with time and not just space." So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe. I mean, that's one way to kind of distract us from maybe sussing that out too soon.
Well, was it just me, or did when that reveal came that the flux is man-made? My kind of immediate response was, well, duh. I mean, at no point did I feel like this was a natural event. This was unleashed by somebody.
Yeah.
So I don't know that was, if it was meant to be a big reveal, I don't know that I bought into it and was duped by the setup, because this did not in any way, shape, or form feel like a natural event. It felt like something that was targeted, maybe that's Thanos, but I don't know.
I think I sort of agree with what you're saying, but from my perspective, when she says it's man-made, it's like, to me, that was something that was manufactured by someone.
Yeah,
I assumed that it was either an omniscient or omnipotent presence and someone unleashed it. It was kind of my thought, was that it is natural, but it's been in captivity, or it's been in hibernation, or it's been sleeping, and somebody unleashed it on the universe, is what kind of where I was going. So to me, it was a bit of a surprise when she said it was man-made, because then that makes me think, okay, whatever this is, the events aren't man-made, it's the actual flux that's man-made. So to me, it did come across as a surprise, a little bit of a surprise, but I can see where you're coming from, because on the flip side, I sort of felt like the cause of it was man-made.
I guess the reveal part of it, the surprise, if you will, would be that it's probably not Swarm that's behind Flux.
Well, I've said that all along.
But yet...
Sean and I still thought it was.
And we still thought it was. And
the effects are similar.
The effects are similar, and the not only the visual effects, but the after effects that you disintegrate away to nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
We've also seen these little this blue cloud fairy things that are doing basically the same thing. And we don't know what this is this episode. Yeah. We don't know what that is either. But it does essentially the same thing that the Flux and Swarm have both been doing.
And so I suppose it's possible that if space and time really are separate things, that they're doing their own thing, Swarm, it seems like he would be, because he's on time, dealing with time, that he's the time element of it, and maybe these little blue things are the space element of it. Maybe because one is running rampant, the other one has to, in order to, keep things in balance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Speculating.
It's interesting. I think it opened up more questions, but sort of maybe, I don't know that it answered anything, but I think it furthered its story, and I think it opened up a lot more questions and possibilities for the next 3 episodes.
Well, I think it answered quite a bit as far as Swarm goes, and the backstory and the history with the Doctor. I mean, obviously, the divisions sent the Doctor in to rein him in and put something in place to get control of time. And from my memory of the Dark Times, it seemed like time wasn't harnessed yet. And putting these, what are they? The mutants. I see the robes, and I think beneath Planet of the Apes. What are they called, Glenn?
The Minori?
Yeah, the Minori. Putting them on the pedestals to help control time almost seems like it helps harness it too.
Yeah. Well, I certainly
So
was,
we do get a lot of information about Swarm and kind of where everything has led up to his imprisonment and why he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I would agree that, and I would agree with that, and I think that Sean bringing up the idea that maybe Swarm is the embodiment of time, or incongruent to time, sort of made me think this week and watch very carefully where they were going with that story. And I still don't think that you're far off with that, Sean. I still think you're onto something there. That it's going to be further revealed, maybe explained a little further down the road.
One can hope. I kind of agree with Keith. For as much plot as was in this, it still felt like it was treading water a little bit. But again, it's the middle, literally the almost middle part of the thing, the middle chapter. So
it felt like it was treading water also because we'd dig into the Doctor storyline of what's going on and where is she in the history, in the backstory, and then we'd cut away to Yaz playing video games, and it's like, oh, come on, I want more of unpacking of what's going on. As I love Yaz, I think she's great, but you're not doing anything with her. If you're going to go to Yaz, let's do something.
Well, at least they used Yaz as a vehicle to bring the angels on board, literally, the story, so that they can advance to next week. So they did use her for some connective tissue. It's just unfortunately that's all she was this week. But I absolutely love the last line the Doctor says when she says the angel has the TARDIS. Such a neat callback.
And next week is the only episode that's co-written, right?
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
So I have a feeling we're not going to get a whole lot of the overarching story.
Yeah. And
especially since it feels like we have kind of a comma at the end of Swarm's part, where it's not resolved, but it's kind of, okay, we gave you the back history, now we're going to set him aside and we'll deal with him later.
Right. Well, I think that's all that was kind of, okay, we're going to catch up on a little bit of his backstory, and then we're going to conclude the story that we're telling here now in the present time.
This Planet of Time and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the anything that holds the image of an angel becomes an angel being used here?
I'm glad it wasn't just a one-off thing. I mean, if it's going to be part of the canon, I think it needs to be revisited, Now, that then takes you back to the original story of if that works.
I've never been a fan of that myself. I always thought that was a contrivance in order to make that episode work for Stephen Moffat. But I'm with Keith. If you're going to introduce that into the mythos, then I think that it's nice to see it reused. And I think doing it the way they did made sense. It was the only way that I think you could get an angel onto the TARDIS. And so I don't like that part of the lore, but I think it's okay that they used it.
It seemed like it was well done, I think. I don't know. It was another thing that I was kind of conflicted on, because I remember that none of us liked that element when it came out. But I also remember thinking with this that it's like, well, it's not a new way of using it, but it feels like a correct way of using it. If that makes sense.
I think it was better constructed than it was in Time of the what's the story?
Flesh and Stone.
Flesh and Stone, yes.
Maybe that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, and I think had they done it more like this in Flesh and Stone, it would have worked better. But then the idea of it's that was taking over Amy, and because there was an image of it in her mind, that meant it was still there. That part was, for me, was where it stretched a little too far. The actual physical pictures and digital pictures, I think the idea of those things become angels, I think is a cool, creepy way to reinvent the angels and add a new element to them, as opposed to the mental image.
Was it a mental image?
Yeah, the self-actualization is a little much.
Was it a mental image?
Because she looked at it too long.
Right. But I thought it was... Okay, go ahead.
But then Yeah, and then when it started like manifesting through her,
Right.
she was nowhere near a TV or anything. They were trying to
no.
get through the ship. Still.
Yeah, no. It was certainly on board with her, but I never got the impression that it was like a mental image. I got the impression it was because they specifically show the reflection in her eye, is that it was that image that had basically climbed on board.
But then that would also mean if you look at any image of the angel, it would climb on board you.
Well, I think I think the point
The
was
climbing on board of the
think-
person is
think-
what I have issue with. I think
the
more than
length of
anything.
I think the length of time, though. I think you're right because the doctor explicitly says you looked at it too long. But I didn't get it. I mean, we're arguing pedantics here, but I didn't get it that it was because to me, if it's an image in your mind, just looking at it for a second, that image is in my mind. I can clearly picture an angel in my mind right now. So has it taken me over? I think with the looking at it so long enough that it imprinted an image on the iris of your eye makes it more tangible to me. And so that's the way I always understood it. But I could be wrong. It could be a mental image, and if it is, then to me that makes that fall entirely apart in that story for me because. Again, anybody that saw an angel will remember what that angel looked like and have a good memory of it. So,
well,
yeah,
and
it
still,
kinda goes
wouldn't it
back
take
to-
a lot longer than what it was to be physically imprinted on the eye?
well, I don't know. You're right because it's just a reflection when they showed it. But
I mean, it's
It
not like
just kind of goes back to that mechanic is broken
yeah,
because you're telling me keep your eyes on it and don't blink. And now you're telling me don't look at it.
too long.
yeah,
Don't look at it at all because if you even catch a glimpse of it, it'll be imprinted on you that, well, which is it?
Right. Yeah.
and the idea that it could be on a screen, and if you blink, it could then come through the screen because what is in the screen is the screen. That idea is fine. It's the
Sure.
becoming a human host is the things I think we obviously all have issues with.
Yes.
So the fact they didn't do that
we've talked
aspect of
through
it, yeah,
yeah.
That's why
I think it was used better this time because it was an actual
image of an
physical
angel.
or digital image of the angel versus a perception image of the angel.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And now,
Yes.
pardon me while I delete the Lonely Assassins from my phone.
now that that's back,
Glenn, you haven't looked at them, have you?
Yeah, lots of times in that game. The Lonely Assassins was one of the best usage of the angels, in my opinion.
really.
You guys still haven't played yet, have you? Oh my
No.
gosh, you should play. It's so much fun. Well, any final thoughts on this story before we close the show? All right. Well, Sean, what do we got?
I think
coming
I'm still coming down off the high of the Sontarans. I just that's going to be a tough episode to beat.
All right. Well, what do we got coming up with the schedule? We actually have names for everything here on out. Did you realize that?
Yeah, I think I did see that actually. Well, coming up next, of course, more Doctor Who. Next, or this week, I guess now, the episode is Village of the Angels. So we have more of the creepy to look forward to, or shy away from, or hide from, depending on where you fall on your love of those things. They did announce the title of episode 5, which will be Survivors of the Flux, which means it's Flux, Survivors of the Flux, which is a little weird when you put it in context. But oh well. And then what's the Vanquishers
Yeah.
is the last episode, which is not ominous in the least.
No, not at all.
Something you said made me curious, Sean. Is Monday the beginning of the week for you, or is Sunday the beginning of the week for you?
Monday.
Monday.
Yeah.
I find that's the case with a lot of people. Sunday's always the beginning of the week to me, but I think it's because I'm a visual person, and the calendar starts with Sunday as the beginning of the week. So I just thought that was interesting that you said that.
I don't like breaking up the weekend.
It's still a weekend. It's just on both ends of the week.
Well, but no, now it's a week beginning. So
Oh, yeah, there you go.
It's misnamed otherwise.
It's on one end of the week, though. There's two ends of a line. There's not a beginning of a line and an end of a line.
Well, you'd be at the front of the line.
It's 2 bookends.
Front of the week. I think that's better than beginning. Front of the week.
What are you
right,
doing this week, front?
When I've got books on my shelves, I've got a book end on each end. So good point, Keith. Thank you. No, I'm just curious.
I had him on the ropes, Keith. What are you doing?
We talked about that with my family just recently, and we'd brought that up, and I had mentioned that, well, Sunday's the first day of the week, and my family was like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "It is, because it's like that on the calendar." I said, "I'm most people agree that Monday is the first day of the week, but I said I think that I've always thought of Sunday as the first day." So
I always just think of it as work week and then weekend. I don't think of it in full week terms.
Right. Okay. All right, well, be sure to check out our website, travelingvortex.com, for updates on the podcast. If you get any value out of this podcast, why not put some value back into it? You can do that by clicking on that Patreon link and consider supporting us. And I will say that I was busy tonight putting together some behind-the-wall content that will be exclusive to Patreon subscribers. So stay tuned for that. Also, be sure to give us a 5-star review, or consider giving us a 5-star review wherever you subscribe to this podcast. And make sure you join in the conversations on our listeners forum on Facebook, where you can engage with other listeners and share your thoughts and insights with them. If that's it for this week, until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you. Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.
Direction point! Direction point!
A Doctor Who podcast network.